introduction of board members and staff. And if we can start with Dr. Zavala, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Dr. Zavala, Assistant Superintendent, Educational Services.
Vaughn Myers, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources.
Kirsten Perez, Assistant Superintendent, Business Services.
Aubrey Rose, Student Board Representative.
Dr. David Gerard, Trustee.
Donna Lee Bush, Trustee.
Thomas Arnett, Trustee.
Bob Benevento, Trustee.
Rick Video, Trustee.
Ron Wolf, Trustee. Gino Borgioli, Board President.
Good evening, Steve BETANDO, Superintendent.
Jeannie Chandrika, Secretary to the Superintendent.
Thank you. Next item is recognitions and presentations. Let me just key that up. So what we'd like to do is acknowledge Aubrey Wells, the student board member for the first trimester 2016-17, and announce David Campbell, student board member for the second trimester 2016-17. So the Live Oak High School senior Aubrey Wells served as a student board member for the first trimester of 2016-17. In accordance with Board Bylaw 9150, student board member, 3 student board members are appointed each year, 1 from each of the district's schools. Each student attends board meetings for 1 trimester and serves as an alternate for 2 trimesters. Central Continuation High School senior David Campbell will begin his term with the November 15th board meeting and will serve through March 7th, 2017 meeting. We acknowledge and thank Aubrey for her contribution to the districts through her service on the board, and welcome David for the second trimester. Aubrey, you were very patient many times with us, and I appreciate that very much. And again, as board president and on behalf of my fellow trustees, we would like to thank you for your service to this board. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda, approval of the consent item. Before we adopt the agenda, we are going to move F1B on the consent item to after G1, so the new G2 is F1B. So with that move, yes, Trustee Roche.
You're moving
I'm moving consent item
the
F.
LPA item?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Just before we discuss or adopt the consent items, I'd just like to speak to one of the consent items prior to us. We don't need to move it to the public section, or to the G section. I just wanted to make a comment on one of the consent items
Okay.
prior to our vote. We received a letter from a community member. Each of the board members received this letter, and I would just like to, it was in questioning one of the donations to the school district, and I'd just like to thank the company NDS for their very generous donation of high quality medical monitors that can serve as monitors for any computer or also for display in any classroom. And they came at a donated value of $196,000. They had the opportunity to donate these monitors to any school district, and I'd just like to acknowledge that that donation has come to the benefit of our school district. And someone I know, my husband, happens to work at NDS, and so he approached our technology team and asked if this could be something that could be useful to our schools. And he's also currently working on procuring video cards of a high quality to be donated also at no cost to the district. So just in recognition and thank you to NDS.
Thank you, trustee Rubish. So with that, trustees, what I would like is a motion to adopt the agenda, approval of the consent calendar. May I have a motion to adopt? Trustee Badil made a motion to adopt. I need a second.
Second.
Trustee Wolf, seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Janie, 7-0, adoption. Aye. Thank you. Thank you, trustee Badil. The next item on the agenda is C, approval of the minutes. I'd like to approve the minutes of the October 18th, 2016 board meeting. With that, trustees, may I have a motion to approve those regular board meeting minutes? Trustee Badil made a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, trustee Arnett. May, all in favor?
Aye.
All, any opposed? Aubrey? Aye. Jamie, 7-0. Item on the agenda is D, public comment communications. So we are somewhat late getting out here this evening, so we have a great many public comments. I would like to limit that to 2 minutes each. Could you just give me that one more cue up and time? Please announce your name if you live in the district and any other comment you would like to make. First speaker is Brian Sullivan.
Thank you. My name's Brian Sullivan. I live in the district. Thank you, board president, board superintendent, members of the board, staff, and members present. I come before you to speak about something that occurred this evening. You were in closed session, came back in and started the meeting, the open session, 45 minutes late. This has happened a number of times. I'd like to make a suggestion to the board that you consider either starting your closed sessions earlier and or stop the closed session when the open session is supposed to start on time at 6 o'clock, and then go back into closed session after the session is over. So I'd like to suggest that to you. Other boards do this. The city council does it. And I don't know very many boards that have consistently, over the past year, on a number of occasions, had a closed session that ran late, and is one instance I know kept people here for an hour. So I'd just like to make that suggestion to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Danielo Nunes.
It's been a long time since I've spoken to you, so my name is Danielle Nunes. I am an employee as well as a parent, and I wanted to speak to you today regarding the decertification process that we're going through. There are a lot of people in this room from SEIU here, and I think that it's important that I finally speak and do. I was letting things go. But 1 year ago today, Erica became the new president of our chapter, and I stepped down, as you know, to start the decertification process. During that time, especially over the past several months, there has been a flurry of activity, negative, against our classified employees. They've been harassed. They've been visited at their homes after they've told people not to. They have been lied to. They've been threatened. People behind me are going to tell you that that's not true. It is true, because if it wasn't true, there'd be a lot more than 5 employees in this room that were behind them and keeping up with what they're doing. First thing they're telling us is that we're going to lose our PERS. That is a lie. We are public employees. PERS is granted to us as a public employee. It does not go away. It is one of the largest retirements in the United States. That will not happen. You'll lose your job. We're not going to lose our jobs. They're being told that you're going to be contract out grounds, custodial, food service, and transportation. This basically is not true. There will be no contracting out. We are protected by laws as well as the Personnel Commission because we are a merit district. And as this board knows, the merit district, the board, the Personnel Commission oversees what the board does and can overturn things that you do regarding employment. We'll lose our longevity and step increases. Again, we're protected by law, and this is just basically not true. It's part of a fear. It's part of a fear that they're trying to instill amongst the employees to scare them into staying with them. They're telling us we're gonna lose our medical benefits, and that simply is not true. We have contract with PERS Medical, we have contracts with them, we have our not going anywhere. We chose in a committee not to get out, which not one of them showed up to, because I went to every single one for 3 years.
Danielle, 5 seconds. Wrap it up,
5
please.
seconds?
Yeah,
You'll
5
have
seconds.
2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so basically, harassment, intimidation, stealing, thievery, lies. They put people on the negotiating committee, they assign them. They did not have the proper voting or nominations or anything else to go along with it. So in closing, we have to vote on the 7th. The ballots are going out. We want out. I can't tell you how many times I go and everybody tells me, Danielle, when is this gonna be over with? We're done. Ballots are mailed on the 7th. We won the right to choose because you couldn't stop us. We will win the right to have our own destiny. We will choose to be free, and we
Danielle,
will choose to take
I
control.
must stop
No,
you. I'm
thank you,
sorry.
and here you go. For all you
Thank you.
people, this is me. I'm the petitioner. I'm the one that did it. I'm the one that filed it. And I am the one that you've been harassing.
Okay, thank you. The next, Fredo Estrada.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Wilfred Estrada, lead custodian at Anso Brato High School. I've been employed by the district over 12 years. Tonight, I'm here with my coworker to urge the board to consider investing in our vital services that we provide to the district. As custodian, our work is critical to ensure a clean and well-kept environment for our students. Tonight, we ask the district to respect the work that we do as classified employees and show a commitment to invest in the workforce that keeps our school running. Like tonight, example, I'm by myself, live oak, I have no help. Trash is not gonna be picked up. The safety post in the street is gonna be there overnight. I'm doing by myself. I'm sorry. I feel so frustrated with this district. I've been requesting for the last 2 years help from our youngest co-worker. Yes, transferred to Paradise. Okay, it's too much work for us, for the 3 custodians. And tonight, and myself, I've been requesting help over 2 years, and nothing happened. And now we're here trying to help the student to keep our school clean. But how can I do it? Especially when the student go inside the ceramic room. You step tonight in there, it's like you're stepping into dust of But thank you anyway. I'm inviting everybody tonight, if you have a spare time, to go to Anso Brato High School and see how high school is upside down. And then, like I said, I need your help, guys. And I'm tired already. Now I'm by myself, and I already talked to some teacher. Do it by yourself. If you want to clean your classroom, do it. Go for it. But don't expect from me to do it by myself. And large facility and Sobrato. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Wilfredo. The next speaker is Cecilia Ramirez.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Cecilia Ramirez and I live in the district too. I work with the district already in food service for 14 years. I love working with children and I know that my job supports the students and their education. I'm here tonight to ask you the board to invest in our service. The many classified employees on a daily basis for our students. They are really working hard already as it is. I help to prepare 7 schools, and it's really hard. We have like 2 open positions, 1 is sick, so we get help once in a while, but then take it away and then give us back, and it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy. And about our care about the food that we provide for our students, but there's been a decline in quality for me to give it to the students. In the beginning, when the district started cutting our service, our hours, before they cutting our hours, we used to doing better things, like more tasting than what it is right now. We have to pull it out of the freezer every day. And I invite you guys to go and see how we do it, to see us. So. And we like you to invest in us because we can provide more, like, give more, sorry, but it's kind of frustrating, but I really want to do more, but it's the time taking. But I would like to have more hours so we can be prepared, go back to our old system and get more hours for our co-workers. And they are very good workers, honestly, and we try our best.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Rigoberto Rodriguez, and I just would like to remind, we only have 2 minutes, and you know the sound. I would appreciate it if we could try and stick by those minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rigoberto Rodriguez, and I have worked for this as a custodian for 28 years. I have been with the district for a long time, and I have watched it change throughout the years. I'm proud of the work I do. I enjoy working with the people that I work with. I love watching our students succeed. But working with the district is not my only job. I have another job because one job is not enough to provide for my family. I have a daughter that is in college, and she, like many young adults, have needs. They need my support. My salary of the district is not enough to consider living in this area. But I make it's not even enough to pay my rent, so not to consider other bills. I am one of many similar stories at Morgan Hill Unified School District. Employees like myself are falling behind. We cannot afford to live, let alone survive, taking a second job and sometimes a third job. We're missing time with our families, holidays, and important moments with our children. But it's a sacrifice we have to make to ensure we put food in the table and support our families. this is our reality, but I don't think it has to be. I'm here tonight to ask the board to take action and invest in the employees that keep our schools running and ensure that we are paid a fair wage.
Thank you, Mr. Berto. Speaker is Christy Shermershine.
Hi, I'm Christy Shermershine. I'm the head of the CIU 5-1, and I'll get down to, I'll do it in 2 minutes. I'll cut out a bunch. Here's the thing. People think about schools and they think about teachers and they think about classrooms, but you know, it's bus drivers that drive those kids to school. It's the mechanics and the dispatchers that have the buses safe and that get the kids to the right place. It's the food service workers who make sure those children have food before school starts. We'll talk about that. And at lunchtime, it's the front office that's the face of the community, the face of the school to the community, to the parents, to the kids. It's the health aides who, if your kid has a tummy ache, you are glad they're there and can call and take care of that child in the meantime. It's the gardeners and custodians that keep the place clean and healthy. All of these people are important and do important things, and yet this district hasn't thought about them enough. We'll spare you the money, we can talk about it in negotiations, but we've looked. Every other district around here pays more, or if they pay a little bit less, like San Jose Unified, they pay 2.5 times more on health insurance. And you'll hear from our president that even Gilroy, which is the lowest, has things that matter to her to move to. So we are not trying to bargain here, but we do want you to know that wages matter. And with the savings that you have, heck, you could pay 8% to our folks and you'd still have $28 or $27 million in your savings account. And we want to fix a problem in food service, which you heard about. You know, we think that it's important for children to have their food before school starts, but you know, since you laid off the food service workers by hours a number of years ago, they have their breakfast at 10 o'clock. So they get to work at school at 8, they have breakfast at 10. You need to add more hours. So we're looking forward that you will settle a contract with us that we can all feel good about. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. The next speaker is Mary Salas. Mary?
Good evening. My name is Mary Salas. I work at Sobrado High. I'll try to keep it short. I've been with the district since 2003. I never seen such a great big vast amount of ladies that work so hard, and I think that they should appreciate it with a good pay and raise. I've been working at a second job in order to make ends meet as well. I work at the SAP. They pay me $17+ dollars an hour, and I've been with them only 6 months. I've been with the district for 13 years, and I don't even get paid that much. But looking at the ladies that work there, some of them have special needs. Some of them have worked there for 30 years, 24, 12, 15 years, and I feel that they should be rewarded also financially, if there's finances within the budget, to consider them, because they do work really hard in order to keep the kids fed well and make sure that everything's at temp. As my coworker at a different school at Live Oak, I also sub at other schools. When there's a need, I go to Barrett, I go to Central, I go to different places. So I do have a lot of qualifications to be where I'm at this school. And I have got the certifications to be in the school and to know what's healthy for them. What else was I gonna say within the time? The cost of living, you guys all know that it's expensive, and that's why we do take on a second job, or we do what we do, but make ends meet. And I just ask that you guys consider that and to see how hard we work. And on top of that, when there isn't a worker, we pull our weight, we pull their weight. And there's times when I've been to Central to help because there's someone absent or some other need, and the girls still pull my weight because I'm not there. There's no subs to fill in those positions, and that you guys would consider that, start bringing more people in so that they don't work as hard. The menus have changed, and so that the quality would be better, but yet we haven't got extra hours to make up for that. You know, it takes more time. It's not considered how long it takes to make all these extra meals, but yet we do it within that amount of time that we work there, 6 hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. The next item on the agenda is communications, but before I start communications, I would like to just announce a couple of candidates that I failed to announce earlier. There are two, it looks like there's only two candidates in the room this evening. One is candidate re-elect Richard Deal. Could you raise your hand? And Tom Arnett, raise your hand. And we also have one city council person candidate, Mario Buenelas, raise your hand. Thank you. Are there any other candidates? Teresa Noel. Okay, thank you. I'd like to go on to E1, and we did not finish our closed session item this evening. We were terribly late. Again, my apologies. The last three board meetings started on time, but this evening we got held up. So again, my deepest apology. After open session, we're going back into closed session, so I have nothing to report out in closed session. The next item is E2, report from the student board member. And I believe, is this your last board meeting?
At Live Oak, we have Macbeth going on, and it'll be showing this week on November 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And last week we were not really celebrating, but having anti-bullying week to raise awareness for bullies and anti-bullying behaviors. And Sobrato is putting on the all-in timing play on November 4th and 5th and 11th and 12th.
Thank you, Aubrey. Before I let you go though, so if there's one thing that you could say about your experience as a student board member, what would that be?
I was surprised at how interesting it was. Like, I thought I would just be wanting to get out really fast. But when I was actually here, I found myself wanting to stay longer.
Okay. Thank you again for your service. Item on the agenda is E3, reports, superintendent and staff.
Yes, we've got a couple comments, and then I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Von Myers to make an announcement. But just since the last board meeting, there have been a lot of athletic events for the high schools. They've got basketball and field hockey and people in championships and football, and some of the schools going on to champion or some playoffs there. So it's a pretty exciting time right now. Since the Giants are out of the World Series, who really cares about professional baseball? So we just focus on our local teams. But since the last board meeting, we had our City Schools Liaison Committee. I was honored to go man a table for a short time at Sobrato College Day, which I believe was the first college day that they had where they had all the tables out, and we were invited to go and represent our college and meet the students that came around to find out about those colleges. So I was amazed at how many colleges were represented. So staff was there, and we saw some rivalries across the quad in Sobrato, different colleges, but it was really cool. The students came and they asked incredible questions about the colleges. You could see that many of the students, not just the seniors, but the juniors and the sophomores, freshmen, were very interested in what was going on. And they didn't have to go to visit, but they were there very interested. So appreciated that. We also had a set of awards at Sobrato, the third trimester from last year, academic awards. What was extremely noticeable this year was the way it's set up is that parents come in and they're on one side, students come in, they're on another side of the gym, and they have the bleachers up for both sides. It was the first year that they had to set up extra chairs for all the students that made the 3.5, 4.0 and above. There were so many students that were on academic, on a roll. And both assemblies were great. The parents came out and supported. The whole gym was packed, so I appreciated being part of that. And some other committee events attended that no one really cares about, but one thing I did attend was, well, both high schools are doing incredible with their theater arts programs. They both, interestingly, chose to do the black box format for some of their theater productions, and so I attended, appropriate for a Halloween season, Macbeth at Live Oak. It was awesome. The incredible work that went into that, the artistic quality, the direction, the acting, the memorization of those lines. It is Shakespeare. I did go ahead and Google Spark Notes for Macbeth, so I can follow along. It's been a while, and I don't think I ever saw that play when I was young. So today, another cool event. We had the ribbon cutting for the refurbished Martin Murphy Gymnasium. And if you have ever in the past been in that Martin Murphy Gymnasium and you go there now, you're going to believe that you have never been there before because it looks totally different. And the field, they had their first basketball game, and it was the girls' 7th grade basketball team that got to play their first. They won 39-5 or 7. And they won 39-5 or 7 or something. Congratulations. Awesome. What an amazing turnaround. Again, credit to our facilities department and all that. Ann, I'll turn it over to Paul.
Great, I have an announcement, and I would like to invite Jennifer Cordoni up. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer has been an elementary school teacher for about 8 years, primarily in the upper grades, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And she has most recently served as a district teacher on special assignment, coordinating and assisting our Ed Services Department with math and ELA adoptions and assisting teachers in learning new instructional strategies, where she has flourished in this last year and a half in her own leadership skills. Meanwhile, she also finished her master's program and her admin services credential. We are pleased to announce that Jennifer will be assuming her new role as assistant principal at Martin Murphy Middle School.
So Jennifer,
Yes.
You're a very lucky person because you're one of the only persons tonight that does not have a time limit. And you don't
I did fill it up, though.
Okay.
But I did prepare some data, and I want to first thank you very much. I want to express how thankful I am for this opportunity. I am excited to be a part of the Martin Murphy team, to work alongside former colleagues from both Walsh and Los Paseos. And I look forward to working with Alex, as I know there will be great things to come. I'm invested in this district, not only as an educator, but as a parent. My daughter attends kindergarten at Los Paseos, and in remembering that success is no accident, I would like to acknowledge and thank the people in this district who play a role in deepening my capacity for leadership with their support and mentorship. I want to thank the board, and I look forward to what lies ahead. Thank you guys very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. So the next item is E4. Is there any person representing MHUSD here by any chance? Morganville Federation of Teachers? No. The next one is the Service Employees International Union. Anybody here representing them?
Yep. Somebody dropped a nice pen.
Okay, tonight I have the rather unfortunate duty to let you all know that I am resigning my position. I have accepted work with Gilroy because I simply cannot afford to stay here 1 minute longer. I am a month behind on my rent, a month behind on my insurance, a month behind on my membership fees. I'm going to get kicked out of where I live if I don't do something. I wanted to be here for 20 years, like some of my colleagues. I wanted the opportunity to work and grow in this position. I had so many things that I had planned. I cannot tell you how frustrated and upset I am to have to stand here and tell you this, but I simply cannot afford to work for Morgan Hill anymore.
it's not just money. Clearly, Gilroy gives a 40-hour work week. The pay is a little bit less, but it's more than made up for by the opportunities I'm gonna have to do field trips again and to work 40 hours. I found a very unfortunate work environment in transportation. I have said this to Catherine's face. I do not say anything to anybody that I've not, I'm not gonna say anything behind her back. She knows exactly what I'm telling you. And, rather like Fredo, I don't often get this emotional, but I sat in a meeting today and yelled because I don't feel like anybody listens to this. You just keep taking this course where you're losing brilliant people. You're going to continue to lose brilliant people. I have colleagues in the bus yard. We found out that a student had gone missing, an autistic child who was on one of the regular buses. And there were, 5 or 6 different people saying, well, I'm almost to Martin Murphy, I'll get there and I'll help look for him. And that's amazing, the amount of commitment. I have a coworker who is a brilliant special needs driver who is being forced to take my route, and he does not like to drive the big bus, and he doesn't know how to handle the kids. And it's making him so uncomfortable that he's getting stomach aches. I'm gonna take him out tomorrow and see if I can't drive him around and get him a little settled. But you'll lose him too. You're gonna lose Greg the mechanic because he's had an argument with Kathleen in which he was denied the ability to go to a meeting involving his autistic daughter for no reason. He and his wife, their jobs do not overlap. She could easily have said, yes, you can go. Because of that one thing, he's lost his temper and he's going to leave. You're gonna lose Richard the mechanic and Bob because they're both retiring. There are at least 2 other drivers who've come to me and said, let me know how it is at Gilroy because I'm really done here. I'm frustrated. I apologize if I sound angry, but I can't do this anymore. And I came with the intention of staying. I have spent 3 years trying to make it work. And I have been, that's all I need to say, I apologize. I value very highly the friendships that I've made here. I learned a lot, things that I have never been able to experience before. It was the single scariest thing of my life to stand up at the all-hands meeting at the beginning of school. And yet, and again, thank you, Bob, great words of advice. I had people help me, and I enjoyed it. It was like a roller coaster. It was one of the best, like, I want to do this. I want to make a difference. I want to help. I have classified people who look to me for help, and I can't help them. That's so frustrating. They're, again, good people who've been 20 years here. Give them a reason to stay, and they will. If anyone could have given me a reason to stay, I would have done it. I just can't anymore. And I can't, never mind, I'm sorry. Anyway, thank you all for the opportunity. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I have learned something from all of you. And to me, knowledge like that is invaluable. I will take it everywhere I go. I will remember the interactions I had with you guys, the mentoring that I had. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Fawn, because you both gave me a lot of knowledge that I did not have any other way to get. Kirsten, your absolutely brilliant budget meeting taught me so much about how things work, and I had this impression that I could take that knowledge to people in, my classified employees, and together we could bring to you guys something that could work in negotiations, and it's not an opportunity I'm gonna have now. And that breaks my heart. Please, please do something to take care of my classified employees and help them stay. I'm serious, guys. You've got to do something. You're going to lose more good people. I cannot, in good conscience, recommend anyone work as a bus driver here. I have had a friend of mine, I drive her son. She has asked me, she started taking the training. She's with Christopher now in the training, and I've told her, you're going to be stuck in a very difficult place for 2 years. I'm not telling you you're not the same person as me, you might not have the same experience. But when I have people that I used to proudly tell people, I worked at Walmart, I used to go back in there and say, guys, you could do so much better. Why don't you come be a bus driver? It is a great freaking job. I have kids that I laugh with every day. I had kids, well, oh yeah, there you go. He's on my bus. He's always the nice one. He's always got his butt pass out. He always sits quietly and does his thing. And, I'm going to really miss seeing these guys. I shouldn't have had to leave. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm kind of going over the same time again. Anyway, thank you all from the bottom of my heart. It was a great, great experience. Thursday's gonna be my last day, so this will be my last meeting. But I certainly hope you guys can find a way to take care of my classified guys, because they really, really deserve it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Is there a representative from the HALA here? No. Okay. Put my glasses back on. And, so the next item on the agenda is the calendar of upcoming events, E5. So we have a pretty long list of calendar upcoming events. On Monday, November 7th at 4 p.m. At Agenic Prep, it's Borjoli and Arnett. On Thursday, November 10th, 6 to 7:30 is the DLAC meeting in the boardroom. Tuesday, November 15th, 5 p.m. closed session. That may change. I will note it if it does. The regular board meeting in the district office, 6 p.m. open session. And that is for the upcoming events. Thank you.
We need to clarify the time that students can leave to get their hour in.
7:45.
7:45, students can leave and they get their hour in. The meeting started. Sorry, Mr. Rowe.
The general business public session items for board discussion. I did at the beginning announce if you did want to speak on any item, please fill out a speaker card. I would encourage you, if you still want to speak, to hand that card in as soon as you possibly can. The first item on the agenda is the Britain Middle School construction budget. Let me just cue that up in my system and see who's going to speak on that.
Casino's going to speak on it.
I think it's Casino?
Yes. Casino's speaking.
Mr. Casino.
He's coming up in seconds.
Not for Q1. Good evening.
So I'm presenting the Britain Middle School update regarding the new construction over at Britain Middle School. This is a follow-up to the special studies session we had earlier, a couple weeks ago. So to give another recap on the background, in 2014 the board recommended the allocation of $750,000 of the Series A to fund the design development of the new Britain campus, and that the staff will provide regular updates at the board for each milestone on the timeline. On May 12, 2015, the board ratified an agreement with HMC architects to start the master planning and schematic design of the process for Britain Middle School. I know the graphics a little light, but the calendar bar graph below shows our current timeline where we are. We're forecasting the new construction to start sometime in summer of next year, 2017, and roll through 2018 into 2019 for the building completion. Down below you have the different criteria, the programming phases, schematic design, which we completed, and the next phase will follow, which will be the design development phase of the design drawings, construction drawings, agency approval, which is DSA and state oversight, and then our bidding and construction. So recap on the schematic design, March, this is kind of some old and with some new community outreach. In 2014, we did gather community input regarding constructing new facility versus the renovation of the existing facility. We conducted community meetings and feeder elementary school staff meetings and website surveys. HMC Architects also completed the schematic design in September of this year, 2016, with consultants and staff holding over 20 work sessions to engage internal and external stakeholder groups over the past 12 months. So currently, we have completed our schematic design. The schematic design concept utilizes the extension of the downtown corridor by placing the new buildings for Britain along Monterey. So this would be Monterey Street, and this would be Keystone. So here would be the Morgan Hill Brew Pub. This would be north, facing that way. The space integrates 21st century learning concepts and environments both inside and outside the classroom. Here you can see, again, the space-line graphic showing the new classroom buildings, a former student union library area, a new kitchen, and an admin building here, and the renovated plot. Okay. Schematic design. The inspiration of the design, schematic design, is to provide a civic presence. And then, there we go, got it. Provide a civic presence, define a New Britain Middle School as a hallmark of Morgan Hill Unified School District. As this is going to be located on Monterey, it gives a great visibility to the public. Some additional scope did occur as part of the community outreach and the internal stakeholder outreach. So although not part of the original project, the Student Union Library was requested in the master planning process to show it anchoring and serving the new classroom wings and anchor the new classroom buildings. And that is also along with the admin building as well on that side, which would be over here. So the master plan, phase one, we're showing starting in summer 2017 through summer of 2019. The project would range from $31.7 to $49 million based on the approval of the scope by the board. Again, we're showing, this is another aerial view showing Monterey Street here, Keystone Avenue right here, the existing fields right here, and the old, the maintenance area, and then the, what I call the shops building from when I went there, but the classroom buildings here as well. And the existing admin parking lot are here. So in order to give some context to what was previously approved by the board, we had the classroom clusters, or the classrooms were part of the original project at $29 million. So right around that same area, even in current market, we're at 31,763 for the classroom wings. Again, upon further developing the scope, we identified some other needs that we thought would be intrinsic to the design of the new classroom clusters, which would be the admin area, the student union kitchen library, and then some additional site work in the plot. Again, in the previous study session, we'd shown a little bit of the overall master plan, and that would include demolition of the existing buildings, renovation of the existing fields, and a total master plan which would range from $71.5 to $100 million. The project we're showing today for phase one would total $49,070,442. Okay, perfect, yeah. So, again, I presented a few different options to give the board a little bit of some lens as to which scopes would be achievable, and this, in this first phase was written. So, it's kind of skipping around a little bit. Sorry, it's just trying to get the option A.
If you go backwards.
Yeah.
The battery's not
I
there.
know.
One more, what ahead?
It's a Samsung remote.
Yeah.
Hey.
At least I got one now. So, option A is better. All right.
Not working.
I'm not touching it. I'm not touching it. It's telling me where to go. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to touch it anymore.
Casino back one?
Yes, please.
I'm trying, it's running. So sorry.
No problem.
It's not connecting.
Is that the right one now? Is that do that one more? You're C and A. Does it say on there?
It's Jim's not here.
Just be you.
I'm not.
Why it's not showing? Oh boy, we're gonna lose him now.
There we go.
Did he do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Option A, phase one.
So out of that phase one.
Oh, I didn't touch it, really?
I'm not there. I'm there. I'm not connected. I can stop here if you like. going the opposite way now. Would you like me to speak through it if the slides don't work? If you get that, okay. So phase one.
Yeah, before you go on though, what I'd like to do, because it is time to release the students. So Aubrey, would you be kind enough? Thank you, students, for staying through this. Thank you, Christina.
Yes, no worries. So option A includes the proposed option, which is the full design of the classroom buildings as shown, the added student union library wing with the new kitchen moved from its current location into the area here, along with a new administration building and parking and quad. Yes, for the 49 million. Yeah, sorry, I won't touch that. So that's option A for phase one. Sorry.
It's just jumping on its own wherever it wants to go. I'm sorry.
Trustees, while this is happening, can we take a 5-minute recess? So I just need a motion. Trustee Gerard and made the motion. The second is Padillo. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Recess.
So option B is to give the board some options as far as what we can achieve in phase one. This shows a little bit pared down option where we wouldn't do the admin building and some of the associated surrounding buildings. That option is $45,321,803. That would be minus the admin building. And what we would do is we would utilize the existing admin building where it is currently and decommission the other buildings. Option C. So in option C, a further scaled down option would be to do 2 of the classroom clusters instead of 3. The corner student union library area and associated kitchen, but not do the second classroom cluster and the admin, which would leave the existing admin building and the next building as well being utilized in the interim. And that price tag is $37,129,151. And then phase D, or option D, in order to even further scale down even further, would be to only do the 3 classroom clusters, so bringing it back down to what was the original scope without the added scope, which would be the 3 clusters and just solely the surrounding landscape of that. That would be an approximate price tag of $33.5 million. So here we have a graphic that shows kind of side by side what we wanted to present as far as options, with the red obviously being what we deleted from each one to give the board some options as to what to group. One of the questions that came up in the study session was regarding funding sources and optional funding sources. We did some research since then to try and identify funding sources that we could count on. Unfortunately, right now there is no state money. There actually is a prop on the ballot regarding state funding. So we may see in a few weeks, but currently there is no state money available. There are some things that agency had identified through their sustainability person, which was the drops, water boards, and savings by design monies. But again, they weren't of a huge value. We'd have to do a few case studies and get through design development to identify exactly how much we could receive from them. So at this time, to be conservative, I didn't show any kind of substantial outside funding sources. Although we could, some of those measures could, some of those design elements would reduce some of our operating costs, such as reducing water usage and or electricity usage we would save on our general fund, which we would strive to do. Sorry, next slide. So the action item that I'm looking for today is to approve the next phase of Britain so we can continue on to the design development and start to go to the project next summer. We've reviewed it, staff's recommending to allocate the total phase one, which is the $49,078,449, which includes all of our construction costs and the project soft costs. And to extrapolate on the soft costs, that's our DSA fees, our inspectors, the design, etc. These would be funded out of the Series B Mega G bond proceeds. We would also, as part of the process, again, continue to research supplemental funding sources such as if Prop 51 passes. So that is my presentation.
So board, do we have any questions? Trustee Wolf?
The second phase of the Series B, the monies that will come in from selling those bonds, correct me if I'm wrong, is that around $60 million?
That's correct, that's what we're looking at right now.
And we're looking at this construction, the first phase to be a little over $49 million, so that, and I think originally that was, having been on that committee, part of that committee, with the funds, the MHUSD funds, one of the chief priorities was Britain School. I can't help convince myself that that was the reason why most of the voters voted for that MHUSD at that time. That's all I can say.
Any other trustees? Trustee
So,
Padilla?
Being on the board with Bob and Ron for the past 4 years, it's concerning that we started at 25 million for a remodel. They said it could go up to 30 million for a new construction, and we kind of went that route. Now here we are looking at 49 million. We're not carte blanche here. This is taxpayer dollars. This Measure G, when it's all said and done and we pay it back in 30 years or however long it takes, we're at $1 billion in taxpayer money. That's $1 billion with a B. Focusing on students, classrooms first is ideal. And I know this extra admin for the student library union, that's got a kitchen and all this community resources and I get it. We want to give something back to the community and have these schools, facilities, a resource for the community. But one building of student union library at another 20 million. I don't know if we're using our taxpayer dollars wisely, as stewards of taxpayer dollars. I would like to see a different, I know you have 4 options. I just think that extra 20 million or ballpark from the original approved board of 30 million, I think that's excessive.
So just to, if I can comment, just to clarify, so the 20 million was for basically about 3 buildings. It was the student union library building. The kitchen is attached to that, which was again, these were things that came up as part of the process. So that's why I showed them kind of as a separate add-on to the basic scope, which was the classroom clusters, just to clarify, and then also the admin structure. So you're getting an admin building, the student union library, and the kitchen was all, those were basically 3 different scopes that came up that we, as we started to design them, kind of became attached to that corner building and then anchored that corner. So just to...
keeping the admin building, if there wasn't a new admin building, would the current admin building require remodel, renovation, and potential eradication of whatever materials and stuff?
Yes, I mean, ideally that would be the scenario. It would be either you build new or you modernize eventually that building. So yeah, that was and the cost study we did, we figured out it would be cost benefit to just build new based on all the renovations we'd have to do, the modernization we'd have to do to the existing buildings, with all the unforeseen conditions we could encounter.
Trustees? Trustee Arnett?
So, having been to Britain and seeing this, I like the plan. I guess the big question mark I have as I'm trying to deliberate about this is trying to
to weigh the trade-offs that we're making. So if I heard correctly, we have 60 million in Measure G second round.
Second round, yeah, there's a third round.
Okay, so we're taking, of that 60 million, the 49 for this would all come from that.
Be 5/6 of it.
Okay. And then, I'm curious, what are the other things that second round is going to this plan for?
So we started to design multi-purpose rooms at Nordstrom and Jackson, so those were the other two identified projects.
If I may.
Sure. Yes, I'm sorry.
Can you walk us through the planning phases and the community input that you received that drove the discussion on the student union bill?
Sure.
How did you arrive at that?
Sure. Well, we started kind of big picture with master planning. So master planning the entire site. So whenever we approach a project, the best way to build is to figure out what are all the needs that we can identify on the site. So we make sure we don't put a building where maybe we perhaps want to put another type of building or maybe a feature. So we started with that. We started to say, and started with the leadership staff on site, with Chris and kind of each department leader, to chair the science department, math, electives. And then in part of that design committee meeting, we invited, I think, Trustee Wolf was there during one of the meetings, right, I believe, and then also we had many different community members invited to that. So we had some homeless school leaders, sorry, I'm a little grasping on, I have the sign-in sheets as part of the
boosters.
We have boosters.
Athletic department, bingo.
Good job, Jay.
Big poll in our
So what we did was we pulled every single thing. We really started with just the classroom buildings. We didn't start talking about a student. We talked about how would they use the space and what are the amenities. Even then it grew right away into where are we going to seat all the kids. We started talking about lunch, rainy day lunch periods, and the fact that the kitchen was going to be far away. So really, and kind of a shorter of the story is that with all the community that we got from the site staff, and we talked about the buildings, they said we'd really love to take this kitchen and make it a part of this area. Additionally, we'd like to renovate our library and bring that area as a part of the classroom cluster buildings. And then as a part of that, when we looked at how the real estate, how it was being developed, the admin was now so far away from where the buildings were, and the fact that we had to, at one point, redo that whole parking area to allow for more parking, it made sense to present the admin being on the opposite side. So then we could pull the admin off the Keystone, and then one day showing that we would demo the existing buildings. That's kind of how the genesis of the.
So you meetings with different members of the community, whether they be parents of students at the school, other outside agencies, perhaps?
Yeah, we invited some local sports, I forget the soccer club that was there as well to talk about the area. And really we got it all the way through to the schematic design you present to yourself. And the next phase we'd be going out to some of the downtown, I've kind of met with the downtown associations and shared some of the thoughts, not until the board makes an action and says this is what we're going to develop. I didn't want to really go forth and say, we're going to do all these amenities, but we presented the idea of renovating on the corridor. Everybody was a fan of it, to just see if there would be any input as far as not building on the corridor. In regards to yes, the development of which buildings we'd like to develop, we reached out to all the different members. We also had focus meetings, at least an hour apiece for each different department, to invite each department to come through and share specific ideas to their different department.
I think Trustee Gerard had your hand up.
Thank you. First, I want to thank and really commend the work that Casino, your team has done on this. As we saw before in our special meeting that we had regarding Britain, I was very impressed with, first of all, the range of choices you're giving us and also the depth of work you're doing. So I want to thank you and congratulate you and your team for doing that. I'm very excited about the plan overall, but I'm really mixed mind. I have basically three concerns. One is in terms of, I guess you could say, cost and priority. It is approximately this, when you look at maybe the base plan, the base model almost of about 33 million or so, I guess it is. And you go up to the 49. I was here in 2014, not as a board member, but as a member of the public when the board originally approved that concept. When three of our trustees were on the board, we're currently here now. And
I understand the excitement and the idea of moving with a larger plan. But there is a cost factor, and I look at the fact that although this would be funded by Measure G, Series B funding, there's a couple other things I'd like to introduce. Our next item tonight is actually to talk about facilities-wide master plan. And as I look at that, that will wrap up in 2017. So I'm wondering whether or not it's possible for us to maybe have the best of both worlds of, going with like the base plan now, and then after our facilities master plan for the entire district is finished in 2017, at that point, almost building in the rest of this as a second phase. So I ask you a question here. If we went that route, to what extent would it delay the total completion of this total project?
Let's see if I can answer that the best I can.
Do you understand what my question is?
Yeah, I do.
So in other words, it's simply giving the board and the community a chance to look at all the different options. I'm very much in line with what Trustee Arnett talked about in terms of trade-offs. And I'm thinking about comments that I've heard from people in the community when they talk about what they want in terms of facilities. What I hear most often is, I really would like to have, believe it or not, another middle school in Morgan Hill, because I don't want to drive my kids. I don't like driving my kids to Murphy. No offense to Murphy, but that's something I hear just so consistently from people when I go out in the community. Then, of course, we have a need that we're considering right now for another elementary school. And when I look at the numbers here, I guess that would be a Series C for the bond. So what I'm saying is I'd like us to maybe take a step back and also keep in mind that this is the second to last meeting of this board. We're going to have a new board. 1 to 3, certainly one of the members that's here tonight will no longer be on the board. And possibly 2 others may not be on the board. We have almost a totally, well, not totally, but a board that has 4 of the current incumbents and 3 new members, or at least 1. And so my preference would be to go at this point, not to reject option A, but to vote for option D now, and then put option A, the rest of option A in abeyance until we completed our total look at what the community wants in terms of all facilities, not just Britain, because I personally think that this is the best option for Britain. I understand the social emotional benefit of having a student union, having a library, also as we saw at San Martin Gwynn, the much improved administrative building in terms of parent service, also in terms of counseling rooms and having more space for our non-instructional staff to work. But we're not a rich community, and it's not free money at the end of the day. We have, only about more than 58% of our community are families and households that do not have any children under the age of 21 living with them. So this is really an additional tax for homeowners, most of whom don't have kids in the district. So I'm not against it, but I'm more, let's say, maybe conservative from both a strategic standpoint and trying to be more sensitive to what the community might want, broad scope. So the community can really have a dialogue about not just whether we put a student union in at this point, a library and a kitchen, an administrative building at almost the cost of an elementary school, or whether we would be better advised to use that money elsewhere, keeping in mind that the superintendent believes there's a need for an elementary school in the near term. So again, the question is, can we do this from a timing standpoint? In other words, can we say yes, option D tonight, put the balance of option A in abeyance until the LPA work that we may approve with our next agenda item here is completed?
So the short answer is yes. So I presented 4 options in that just to give the board some options as to what we could achieve within the next year. Again, my reason for showing you all those is to give you that choice. our suggestion after we've gone through all of the data really is, what is the risk? So that was part of your question, is why wouldn't we do all of it? Right now, we're seeing escalation. I just attended another conference talking about escalation in construction costs. So if it is something we delayed, we could see an increase of 7 to 10% on the price tag by next year. We're seeing in excess of that, even here in the Bay Area specifically. That's the California average that are being quoted by the economists that are in cash. And so, and again, at least in the Bay Area is even more of an anomaly than that. So that's, you know, when I identified need, I said, this is truly the need that we want. And that's being presented by the community and by the staff, and kind of is going to be part of the overall vision for that site. I wanted to present it to the board so you can make that decision. It may cost us, it will likely cost us more in the future. The economy is looking strong, and they're showing no downturn for the next 18 months. So for sure, we'll see an escalation of about 10%. In fact, the reason why we've seen scope creep past the 25 to 30 million is because, you know, we've been planning since 2014, and every year we're gaining about 10%. So that's in line with our escalation that in excess of the Bay in the Bay Area. So we're seeing an excess of 10% escalation every year. So I think the prudent thing was for me to show the board all the options with the vision that this was the achievable economy of scale to do that corner building and the admin well, if that was going to be the need. We definitely do not. We can scale it back and do the 3 clusters as shown. So I think that's something that the board needs to do.
Yeah, and just to add one comment, and that would be, you know, if we did what I'm recommending at this point would be option D, and then we said, well, now we're going to also build an elementary school, right? Would that then allow it? Would that not then allow us to build an elementary school sooner because of the need to get a bond funding? I don't know. I mean, I would hate to delay any of the projects that are needed.
So, and maybe Kirsten would be more apropos to answer that, but I believe the expansion comes out of capital facilities funds, generally speaking. Yeah.
Yeah, so new construction typically comes out of capital facilities funds, which are fees that are levied on new development and or expanding your house more than 500 square feet. We were also planning on money from new construction from the state, and if you've seen the polling results lately, it looks like Prop 51 may not pass. But that was a new school facilities bond that we were hoping would match our new construction money out of capital facilities. So we would have to come back and kind of look at how do we fund it. We are looking at increasing our developer fees from what's called level 2 fees to we're at level 3, we're looking at level 2 or level 1 so that we can collect more money in light of the fact that there's not state money right now.
Thank you. I guess so where I land, I may be the only board member who feels like this, but where I land at this point would be that I would want to, for the reason of especially the strategic plan, having the overall strategic facilities plan, given the fact that we don't really have needs at Britain, although I love this plan, but I would move to put option D on the table.
Thank you. Trustee Rubish?
Thank you, President Bargielli. I'm in favor of option A for several different reasons. We've gathered input from our community for many years as a community member, as a person who has worked in facilities that were new and they don't last forever. And when remodel money came around, there was the least expensive option selected for updating Live Oak, and the second phase never came. And I do think it was because of increasing construction cost on for a plethora of reasons. But I think that the students and the community members who use our facilities continuously, 24/7, deserve a state-of-the-art building. And I think approaching this with the global aspect of planning the entire campus is critical to using our resources wisely. And I think that if we're set up to begin the construction and it continues in a timely fashion for the entire campus, I think ultimately it's going to be a cost saving. I think that there's an educational benefit because research shows that as facilities improve and it's an exciting and more stimulating modern environment, students achieve or have higher achievement. So I'm definitely in favor of option A. I asked 1,000 billion questions at our initial planning session when you introduced this, and I've thought quite a bit about it, and I think hearing from, as I said, community members, employees, and then having had the experience of my children and myself being in buildings that never quite got to the last phase, I'm in favor of looking at this from the totality of the work.
Trustees?
So going back a little bit on the questions I had earlier, for the Measure G funds, for the 60 million, when the plan was made, or when the plans were made that would potentially increase the cost of this, were those funds that hadn't been originally planned, had they been planned for something else? Or?
No, so again, this was a priority, Britain was a priority. The consideration of the 25 versus 30 million was at the time, the cost of a remodel basically and a rebuild. And this is the rebuild. The concern on the remodel was that not only was it a high price for just renovating old buildings, was a deep concern is when we got into the remodel, that it might be $5 or $10 or more $1 million when we got into the walls and everything else there, which would also be a consideration for renovating any of the current buildings if we were going to do less than A. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but no, the part of the structure on the rest of the plan, there were components of Measure G when it was passed that were embedded in there, and because there were needs on the survey for Measure G and safety, all the fire systems, all the internet wiring, all the technology, and then the concern for the current structure of buildings and roofing and things like that. Those were all part of the consideration, but not specific down to the dollar amounts for each item.
So I guess my question is a little bit related to, not necessarily Britain, but other facilities. So if the cost of this was originally 33 million, goes up to 49, that difference of 26, 27 million, was that planned for something else, or is that?
Yeah, so you're talking 16 million, I think, is the difference or so, about, right? The 33 versus 49 is around that of the difference. Again, the 33 was part of the escalation, but the 30 estimate wasn't with the specific components, and Cassina, you could talk more about that.
Well, the three components, I think, are what projects will we get pushed out or maybe not done? Is that the question you're asking? So the three, like Kirsten mentioned, we have the multi-use buildings, which were the priority out of when the needs assessment was done, as far as what we do first, which is technology. We put the multi-use building designs and some other modernizations at the front. And Series B was allocated for as the first half of this Measure G expenditure as part of to be part of Series B. What the great thing is, with the savings we gleaned from Series A, we were actually to use Paradise Valley earlier, so that's about a $7 million savings there. So if you think we've already done $7 million of that balance, where the delta is really only closer to about 9. Okay. So with that being said, we still have instead of taking 50 million in Series B, we're doing about 60 million because we did 50 million in Series A. We're doing 60 million in Series B. We're actually still accomplishing the same scope, but for that extended bond Series B, if that makes sense, on top of the savings that we've had, that 7 million out of Series A. So really, be Jackson and Nordstrom will be the next two on the docket for Series B, on top of Redmond.
Okay.
Series B.
Just for clarification, Measure G funds cannot go towards building a new school, is that correct? It's all for improvements, modernizations?
It's possible it can go towards
It's possible, but the intent was to improve our existing facilities.
Yeah, that wasn't specified in the Measure G.
So by investing this money here, it's not like we're taking money away from another school because it was never necessarily intended.
It wasn't encumbered for other projects.
I'm a little confused now. I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing that it wasn't intended for new school construction, but I'm hearing that it could be used, that Measure G funds could be used for new school construction. Is that correct?
The ballot language is always written to be vague. It's a point in time in 2012 when we passed Measure G to be permissive enough or vague enough to allow for it to evolve as the bond series goes. So, for example, if you were to be so specific in the ballot language to say, for example, purchase of Chromebooks, well, we know technology changes, and in 8 years it may not be a Chromebook. So the language that they use is fairly broad to allow for it to change. So could you interpret the language to be used for a new site? The answer is yes, you could. Was that the original intention of Measure G? No, it wasn't.
So you'd have a challenge. And my answer to, could it be used for a new site? Bond money can be used for a new site. It's usually specified in the proposal for the bond when it's put on the ballot.
So in other words, going back to my original concern, I guess, there is a trade-off that with about $11 million left in Series C after you utilize the $49 million here, if we wanted to build a new school, let's say a new elementary school, costing maybe $20 million, we're still short $9 million.
Sorry, I'm doing the napkin math quickly, but whatever the shortage was, to on the point of the needs assessment never contemplated a new elementary school because at the time of the voters, it wasn't as part of the matrix as far as the contemplation of the schools in general. So yes, any new school would be, while allowed in the ballot language, wasn't a part of the original needs assessment.
I understand, but again, my question is, I'm just trying to understand this particular Measure G. This money can be used to build a new school, correct?
It can.
Okay. So therefore, there is a trade-off, obviously.
Okay, so with the specifics of, it could be challenged. If it wasn't specified that a new school could be built with this specific bond money on the measure, which is one of the reasons why we have a bond oversight committee, just to make sure that what we went to the voters for and said, these are the items that we're looking for. There's a way to pass a bond at a different threshold where you don't have to specify, but that's not the way this bond was put on the ballot. So we would have to be able to justify to a voter that said, hey, I voted for this, but you didn't say you were going to build a new school.
Well, I guess that's goes back to my other concern that I mentioned, that we're going to be voting on a $189,000 proposal for the next item for a facility, an all district facilities master plan. And so if, as a result of this master plan, which has a tremendous amount of community involvement in it, if the net of that in 2017 is our top priority is to build a new elementary school or a new middle school or whatever, or fix the bathrooms in charter school Morgan Hill even, then that would be the priority. And who would challenge that? I mean, you can challenge anything, but if it's possible to use this bond money for an elementary school, and then we find that we spent $49 million on this particular project, which includes $13 million that is not really directed to classrooms and directly involved with student achievement, and thereby not be able to build an elementary school at that point when we might need it. What are we doing?
So let me dive a little bit deeper into capital facilities. So right now we have roughly $8 million in our capital facilities fund. We've been collecting approximately $3 million a year into that fund. And if you imagine the $20 million elementary school to be the master plan, kind of what Casinos kind of presented here to be $100 million of money. So what you would look at is you're not spending $20 million on day one. As the property's developed, and that could be over a period from, probably 5 to maybe even 10 years, we're not assuming that the school would be fully operational day one. We're assuming that there would be slow kind of construction. So typically when you open a new elementary school, you start out with like a TK2 facility, and you're adding a grade level as you go. So you don't necessarily have the entire site developed at one time. So that helps with some of maybe the cash flow. If you figure you have $8 million in and you're collecting $3 million, you plan out your construction based on that kind of cash flow assumption. We also know that the city is giving us $3 million for the development of what will be a joint use park area. So that reduces the development cost of the district because it's really a cost share with the city. And so all of those kind of factor into developing what is maybe a full master plan of $20 million But we have to parse it out, based on it needs to be like a 5 to 10 year plan. Because maybe you don't need the multipurpose room when you first open, because you only have 100 students. That's something that could be built maybe 5 years down the road. So you typically time that with your developer fees.
Okay. And we want to get in line with the state allocation board at the same time if the bond is passed.
Makes sense. I wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Christina?
Yes.
The cost of the student union kitchen library is about 16 mil, right?
Yes.
Somewhere around there.
Yes.
16.6 is that, but
Sure.
around 16 mil. Why did we have an option of including the admin at 5.7 and not doing the student union kitchen library as one of the options?
So not doing the student union admin kitchen, or student union kitchen combo, and then doing the admin only, but not doing that corner, or not doing.
Right.
We could have, I mean, ideally that, it kind of comes from the economy of scale of building that whole corridor. So it was trying to pick things that would naturally be built, so if the board didn't choose to do that, we could then marry that piece later. And really came down with priority. They kind of showed that was a big hot ticket item from the community. Admin kind of came up as opposed to moving the admin from the other side to that area. That is a component that we could have made it work by occupying the existing admin until we got to phase C perhaps, or phase D when we did the parking lot work. So it was just a force of construction and a planning issue. If we wanted to do the admin, I'm sure we could. We might have to modify our numbers a little bit to show the site utilities and how everything was designed together.
Didn't the design committee also participate in those determinations?
As far as the phasing?
Yeah, the phasing and where the structure of the building, where the location of the admin, the front of the school and Keystone, the parking lot area, the proximity of the student union to the admin.
Yeah. All that was part of the master planning. So we looked at the total picture with the design committee to talk about where the components should live. And then what we want to do is bring back to the board a menu item of, these are the priorities, this was the 3 classrooms, and these were what we heard as a priority from the community and staff, that they really wanted a library, kitchen, new admin area, and so we showed this components what we wanted. So I guess my question is, it was just based on the feedback and the priority of what made sense with construction and design, on top of what we heard from the community.
Does Britain right now have a student union building?
No, it does not.
Yeah, and but they have some sort of a kitchen, right?
They have a
warming kitchen, and they do have some sort of a library, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, and so I'm trying to figure out in my mind too, we have a master plan that's going to be talked about at the next G item here. And I'm trying to figure out if we're putting the cart before the horse relative to the complete build out. I understand the risk is, a 7 to 10% increase if we, carve out, just for an example, the student union kitchen library part and leave in everything else.
Well, then let me chime in there. So the 7 to 10%, which is on the lower side of the escalation, actually that's the average. Variation a little higher, just for that. So the economy is doing really well right now, so that escalation is something we see at the end of the year. Also, if we start to dissect the components of the construction, we also have some phasing involved. So we have another contractor, we have a separate set of markup. So wouldn't be a true just 10% or 15% markup. We'd really have to deliver that as a separate project. So there might be some temporary utilities involved, that sort of thing. So yeah, if that makes.
But we could plan that in.
We could. Yeah.
At the beginning.
Like 15% more is what I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to quote you 7 to 10% and say that I said that it was only going to be 7 to 10% without getting a total picture on how much that phasing would actually be.
But do you understand my question relative to the master plan? So we don't fully have a master plan yet, and we don't know in the district some of the things that we're going to be facing down the road. So my thinking is if we put the student union kitchen library in another phase, and I was a fan of the admin, because I looked at San Joaquin Gwynn and I was just in awe of what that does to the staff and everything. I'm trying to figure out what would the student union look like relative to how that would affect student achievement.
So we prioritized the planning and the construction phasing of planning the student union, if that was to go forward as a part of the classroom buildings, because of a couple reasons. One, the existing kitchen would, so if you can imagine not doing the kitchen, because that wasn't a part of the original plan, but the proximity from where it would be in the existing, we'd have to keep that updated and keep that in the existing location, which would be further away from the classrooms. In addition, the library would be in the existing building wing, so that's all the way, if you look at the site map, maybe you can go back to the site map and show how far away it would be. So yeah, that's perfect. So the existing kitchen building, if we were to leave it,
Could you turn the model? Oh, that's right.
That's okay. Sorry, I just wanted to show you.
You could upload it on your laptop.
Yeah, but I can't see where it's pointing.
So the driver for the whole project and the admin and what the impetus for the admin, the kitchen and the student union building was, if you look, if we only did the classrooms, we would be operating out of the existing admin, which would be here, and the library, which is here. So it's looking pretty far away from where all the classroom and the student roasting area would be. So we could make it work, but now you've got all this travel time involved, you've got time management going back and forth. Just a lot of challenges started coming up. Supervision, middle school kids.
Talk about the staff lunchroom and that in proximity to the admin building as well.
Correct, yeah, your staff lunchroom now would be way over here in this area. Whereas if it was connected to this corridor, now it's all aligned with your services are all the same. So the reason why we prioritize, if there was one to fall away, we would inconvenience the admin, the actual administration building, as opposed to the student services and kind of the kitchen area, because now we prioritize the students and the kitchen services as a part of the corridor. So from a construction standpoint and also program standpoint, if one was to say, if you told me the library, student union versus the admin, I would have to say the student union, library versus the admin and the student union, because it makes sense as a part of this building. Not just because it's connected, but of course because of all the services that are kind of intrinsic to that area. The admin makes sense because now that we pulled everything over here, well, now you've got the supervision of the quad and all your daily activities are now happening on that side. So in order to corral all that service, it made sense to put all of them here. And that's why the scope kind of extended as we really started to look at the process. It really never is just the classrooms. You have to contemplate the whole picture and how the day-to-day service is going to happen at the site. So that's kind of why hopefully that clarifies. That's why we, in the two of the three schemes that we gave you, we showed the student union, because we figured if we cut anything, we cut the admin, because this kind of makes sense, or we cut it all together, because then you at least have the kitchen, I guess, and that's the admin, which isn't ideal, but at least they're flagged to one area of the site.
One of the other issues too, with phasing a building that's connected, is that you can go through different code changes with the Division of State Architect during the process. So say this is developed under the 2016 code, and say we do the student union under 2020 code. They will make you, because the building is connected, go back and upgrade the other building, and I experienced this in another district where the board was really frustrated, because you've just completed a building and now you're forced to essentially modernize or upgrade basically a brand new building, because the Division of State Architect will say the whole building has to be up to code because it's connected.
Could you speak to how it might, the difference in component building of the school compared to the whole project, how that might affect our bidding the contract?
Well, yes, so again, with the escalation, we've also got, you have an economy of scale with building, the whole building all at one point. When you start to piece out the different contracts, you have separate markups, separate sets of contractors. Addition to the code changes that Kirsten mentioned. So specifically, we have code changes to the CDC happening in January. So when we design this building, it will be designed under 2016 code, actually, which would be good effect 2017. If we wait and say this phases into 2 years, let's say, so we're done, because it's going to take us 2 years to complete this building, and we go to decide to do the next phase, we'll actually have to redesign the whole, at least that project and probably components of the existing under the 2018 Title 24 and all the CDCs, everything that changed. So again, it's knowing what we know in front of us and the code changes that are going to apply versus what we don't know. So there's a few different components to it, and that affects our bidding schedule as well, because we won't know specifically what changes will have to be made at that time.
approved, permits are approved at the time. We don't have to keep, if the building code changes while we're building, we don't have to meet modern. So I
Right.
hear what you're saying and I disagree, because whatever we pull the permit on, that's what code we build for.
Not
Well,
necessarily.
I think that's
what I'm saying.
saying.
That's what I'm saying.
He's supporting.
What you build, but they can also require you to upgrade for accessibility is one that you would have to upgrade
For
for.
ADA, yeah, but not for the whole thing. You said if we build.
For example, fire code changed a few years ago and added voice evacuation to all of our, so anything we touch then now has to add voice evac, which we've had to now. So there's certain challenges that happen as they update electrical. So yes, to your point, if we whatever we approve today or the board approves, that'll be built under a certain code. If we go back in 2 or 3 years, potentially, depending on what code, because that'll be electrical code that comes up every 3 years. That portion will change, which will be the update of the fire life safety code, and potentially when they interchange, for example, we build that new building to whatever that code is, and if it's connected, we're showing them it's connected on that corner. Again, that's why I showed the connected building as portion of it, because I'd rather build a separate building by itself, because then that can be a standalone. So if that code changes, it doesn't affect the larger building. Yeah, it was.
No, I agree. So if we pull the permit for the whole thing.
Right.
And only built in phases, permit's still under that code.
But if you pull the permit, we need approval for the whole thing.
Yeah, you have to get approval.
We're not spending it all at once, I think, to what.
But you can't pull the permit and just kind of hold it and not.
As long as you show meaningful, progress. She remodeled.
But what I know is that, I know that we've had experience in our district where we had projects going Barrett, remodeling Live Oak, and Vibrato. And Barrett ended up being one of the most expensive elementary schools built in the state because of continual change after the fact of the initial decision, because things weren't decided globally so that we could act, as you're saying, under one set of permits, and you just built. And ultimately, Live Oak never got finished, and that was part of a promise to the community. And so that's why I'm advocating for, efficacy of how you educate children, how build, and what it does within the community is important. And looking at it in totality, you cannot have, I don't believe, and I think I'm an educator who has some experience. You can't have an effective school if your administration is removed from the center of the campus. You can't have an effective school climate and culture if half of it is left in unfinished or disrepair or using old buildings. And I'll tell you right now, in 1974, the staff room was my classroom. So I'm saying it's time to look at Britain as a center of our district and approve a total picture, exercise the most efficient way to use our dollars, and move forward. It's going to be a pay as you go anyway, as Kirsten so eloquently explained. Can we make a motion?
Yeah, so trustees, I think we've dialogued quite a bit on this to a point where they all understand where we are. And I'd like to make the motion to approve as submitted. Do I hear a motion to approve? Trustees.
Submitted what? What are we approving? Phase
Well,
1A?
Option
Option
A.
Option A.
Option A.
Phase one, option.
Thank you, Trustee Benedetto. So this is to approve the recommended option A, as it says on the bottom of the impact here.
Call for a second.
Pardon me?
Second?
Yes. Second?
I'll second that.
Trustee Benedetto seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Jim?
First and second for.
Ron did first, I did the second.
Trustee Benedetto second? And
Vote is unanimous?
yeah, and then everybody approved it. So JD, you have that 7-0?
Phase one, option A. So
Right. So, well, as submitted, financial impact 49 to be funded out of MHUSD bonds, and that's option A. So we're going to go back up to F1B right now, and we put that in as a G2 item. And we do have a speaker card on that. I'm just pulling up my item here for a minute.
Thanks, Christina.
Oh, no problem.
Good work.
So the next item is the master plan and F1B, and we have a speaker, Brian Sullivan. Brian, can you do it in 2 minutes?
Try. Might be 3.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Board President, appreciate it, Superintendent, other board members, staff, and people present. I'm Brian Sullivan. I live in the district, but I'm speaking as the president and chairman of the board of the charter school of Morgan Hill. The district-wide facilities master plan that is F1B, I do believe includes the charter school. You don't have to answer me correctly, I do believe it does. Thank you. That being said, before Measure G was passed, myself and another board member met with Wes Smith about Measure G and about the involvement of the charter school and working with the parent community to make sure that Measure G got passed. Our parent community was very active, did a lot of precinct walking, and helped get that passed. We have a very active parent community, as you all know. They're involved and they're active. So with regard to what you just talked about Britain, $49 million, which you just now approved, if you recall about a year ago, I came before you and I stated a number of items that were in need of repair and fixing and remodeling at our school. Since that time, not much has been done. I said at that time I was going to put a stake in the ground. If it didn't get done, that you'd hear more. I can tell you our board is not happy. They're very upset. Nothing seems to get done. This has been going on for year after year after year through Prop 39 when we come together to try and have that facility use agreement and get Prop 39 through and get the things done that need to get repaired in the school. And one of your board members mentioned the bathrooms. It's just one of the items. We fixed 3 of the facility, 3 of our classrooms over the summer. The floors are still uneven. The doors don't close right. They're still sitting on the ground. It's the oldest school in the district. Come on. You're going to spend $49 million on Britain over the next few years, maybe 100. And we've got a facility down the road here that's part of the district that needs repair. It needs remodeling. We just spent $1.5 million on a new classroom in San Martin. We're at the end of the road, I can tell you. We've made a proposal to you, closed session, which I hope you've been discussing. We've made a counter proposal back to you again. Our board met on it again in closed session last Tuesday. We're waiting for an answer. We're ready to move. If we don't have that and we don't get it moved that way, there's going to be some other action taken. But I can tell you that there's been some lawsuits about Prop 39 that have passed in this state, and every single time the school district has lost. So I can just tell you that we need to make some progress. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So trustees, the next item that we are up for discussion is an approval agreement with LPA Inc. to create district facilities master plan. Do we have a person who's going to speak on this?
It was a consent. Yeah. Who asked for it to be moved?
I did. I was there.
Okay, so
I have a question regarding this. I did make a note regarding, looking at the contract, it shows me on page, there's no page, but it talks about the fees, Kirsten, and it says, fixed fee proposal, $180,000, and then on our justification on the agenda, it's $189. I look over to the side, it says reimbursable cost, and there's that $9,000. So reimbursable means they can get reimbursed or they give it to us.
Reimbursable means we reimburse them.
So it's 189,000.
It's 189,000.
Okay. I have no question.
Okay, trustees, we pulled it off the consent. Is there any other questions on this?
Well, I will, but I believe Casino is willing, I think.
Oh, I was just here to, yeah.
Is that correct?
Go ahead and
Yes.
answer your question. He's
I'm just
ready
here
to
to
answer.
answer
Oh,
questions.
okay. Oh, okay, very good.
I'm ready.
Well, I mean, first of all, I'd like to hear a little bit about the intent of this. I mean, I'll stop there, and you can just tell me what the intent of what the proposal is.
100%. So the idea behind the facilities master plan, a district-wide facility master plan, is to provide that continuity and that clarity between architects and for our overarching plan. So not just for this bond, but for future bond sales as we start to extrapolate where we're going to be as a district. The facilities master plan, which should be looked at every 5 years, kind of gives that continuity from all of our architects and facilities folks. So that is kind of the broad brushstroke of district facility master plan.
Other questions? I was hoping you could maybe just walk us through a little bit without going too exhaustive, but I mean, I see there's a great amount of dialogue and activity and consultation. There's various committees. There's an internal steering committee, and I guess one of my first concerns is I'm a little bit chagrined that in my time on the board, we so often have surprises, Friday surprises where suddenly there's a rollout of a major project. And I'm hoping that in this instance, that there'll be substantial board involvement, because I think this is a strategic matter. As somebody speaks to district vision, which is the province of the board. And I think that it's, I'd like to hear what the intent is in terms of how the board will be involved, how schools will be involved, how community members will be involved, how some of the concerns Mr. Sullivan just mentioned in his community, how all of these various players will be involved in this approach. Because it seems like what the consultant is laying out is a very consultative approach. It's one that I like very much, but I just want to make sure it really happens as laid out here.
Oh, absolutely. So I think the best thing, I pulled a copy of the graph which kind of shows a timeline, and I think that's the best kind of graphic to kind of show you what the intent is of the schedule. But yes, that's exactly right. So this provides some ongoing meetings, both facility master planning meetings internally with our facilities folks, our technical staff, an executive committee, which will go through the visioneering process, which could have opportunity for a board member to maybe sit on that committee. There's also separate board updates and board presentations that will happen to get your feedback as well throughout the process, along with individual sites, which we'll be engaging in both school site forums and one-on-ones throughout the process. So the graphic that we've shown shows kind of where we milestone each one of those occurring, and really in a part of that process, because I mean, when we went out the bond way back when, our needs are always going to be continually growing every 3 to 5 years. Technology is changing, our facility needs are changing as we've updated things. So this is really providing a supplemental document to our needs assessment, which kind of takes that, plus our demographics, plus all of our data, provides all of the background so that we don't have questions of when things are kind of going to get done. So that when these are being forecasted. Now granted, what we'll do is we'll create a plan. That plan will have to be reevaluated every 5 years or so, because again, those needs will shift as well. But to start somewhere, this shows a layout of how the meetings should occur, the timeline when we're proposing to get those done, and also because, like you said, the price tags of certain things are escalating now. When we first went out for a bond for Measure G, that was assuming that it could do X amount of work. Well, as we're escalating, that is quickly diminishing. So we have to be able to, as district staff and as a board, go back out to voters and know when we have to go back out for another bond in order to finish some of this work, because clearly there is need far beyond Measure G. So we need to create that plan early so that we can then be ahead of that, so we're postured to succeed as we go toward the end of our bond series. So that's kind of that's my emphasis for the facilities master plan.
Move the question.
So we do have a motion on the floor to approve this. Do I have a second?
Second.
Before I ask for a vote, I'd just like to discuss one thing, and is that nowhere in here I see the committees and everything, and the district and community stakeholders, but I don't see, board involvement in here.
That's the very top.
At the very top of the graphic.
The red.
So red, at the very top.
So.
So the red squares show specific milestones of, I think, almost quarterly Board of Education presentations and workshops. Kind of have the language next to what it's supposed to be. And also you'll see there's an executive committee that's a part of that process.
So what I'd like to do is make sure you give a commitment that we can assign a board member to these various committees and everything.
Yeah, the place for that would be the executive, that's the executive strand of the, because there's different.
Right, but given the past, where we've had some committees and the board wasn't a part of those, I just want a commitment that the board will be a part of this master plan.
In your organizational structure, in December, you'd have to identify that as a position, a committee of the committees, because there's a list. You get that.
So, okay,
Yes.
that's what I'm asking for. So can you give me the list so I can make sure, not now, I'm just saying, so I can make sure that board members are assigned to the various.
The board actually identifies what those committee assignments are.
Okay, that's.
I would just seek to remind the board that actually back on March 15th, we approved an agreement with LPA to develop the education specifications and approved that. And then back on October 4th, just a few short meetings ago, we again approved, what was the language? Motion by Mr. Padilla, second by Mr. Gerard to approve the education specifications for facilities. So we've had some significant board review involvement in this process already. So now we're just basically approving that.
Right, but again, my question was relative to assigning a board member
Understood.
to a committee.
I'm just saying that the board has been informed and.
I never said it wasn't.
Just making sure.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion before the board to approve, a second, and all in favor of that motion.
I second it.
Trustee Bedell.
I did now.
Wait a
So
minute.
Gerard's first.
Gerard's
I have
first.
Gerard and Ron Wolf.
Wrong.
Yeah.
It was motion second, so,
Okay.
and then,
Okay.
and then you commented, and Bob commented.
Okay, so my error, so
Now you can call for the question.
all in favor of that?
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0. Okay, thank you. Let's go back down to the GI.
Thanks, Gina.
And where's it? Do you want to put it on the projector? Or do
I
you want-
have it
Okay.
ready here, and I also shared it with you, so.
We can put it on this, the big projector,
Okay.
because it's easier for people to see.
So the next item on the agenda is G3. It's listed on the current agenda as G2, and it's called Local Revenue Enhancement Options. This is for information and discussion only. Trustees?
I have it all set up and it's not showing. I think there's something wrong with this whole stuff thing.
The finance person gives somebody
Brian Sullivan, I'm sorry that
It's
I
okay.
omitted it.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Once again, Brian Sullivan, member of the community. I'm speaking again as the president of the Charter School Board. We would be very interested in helping in this regard with whatever the decision is of the district, so we can work in concert, get our family and very active parents involved again to pass a measure to raise funds that we would participate in. So, just would like to tell you that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Good evening. So tonight, we'll talk a little bit about revenue enhancement options. As local school districts, there are not many opportunities to really increase revenues. Our revenues are generated mainly from the state and local property taxes. We do receive several grants from the federal government. Very few grants from the state remain outside of local control funding formula. And we do have local donations as well, but many of our resources are coming from the state. Wait, we're doing the kittens a clicker.
Yeah, just look at the.
So.
Just pointed at one.
Yeah.
So just as way of
with the laser.
As way of background, this agenda item came up at the request of Trustee Rebush, who asked about, can we start pursuing opportunities to look at how do we increase our revenues? This isn't something new for Morgan Hill. This isn't something new for school districts in general. Many people have looked at this before because the funding problem in California, and you'll see specifically for Morgan Hill, a lot of districts are in a similar situation. You'll see if we look at our local control funding formula per ADA, we are last in what we consider our comparable districts. So we receive $8,023 per student per average daily attendance, so we only get paid when students attend. And if you look at the high end of our comparable districts, Santa Clara Unified receives $10,371 per ADA. So you see that there's a vast difference in the amount of revenue, and this is only from local control funding formula. This doesn't take into consideration the other revenue sources. So for example, Milpitas has a parcel tax. San Jose Unified has one on the ballot for this fall. Santa Clara Unified has a parcel tax that's expiring in 2017. I don't know if they'll put it back on for renewal. But this only looks at LCFF funding, but there's a lot of funding that these districts are receiving in addition to local control funding formula that far exceeds what the district has. So this is kind of the problem that we're trying to solve. So I'm going to share with you some probably not very exciting information about our parcel and land use information, but it pertains to what we'll talk about next is what is our ability to really generate funds. So within Morgan Hill Unified School District, and we're a very kind of unique district, as you know, nearly 300 square miles, but we incorporate San Martin, Morgan Hill, San Jose, and really the unincorporated area of Santa Clara. So 83% of our parcels in Morgan Hill are residential parcels, so the majority of our tax base is based on residential parcels. That's different when you think of maybe northern Santa Clara area and what they're able to do, and I'll explain why that's important later. And in particular, when you look at residential parcels, the majority are single-family homes. Roughly 83% of the parcels are single-family homes. And so when we talk about a parcel tax, it's on a complete parcel, and so sometimes when districts are looking at parcel taxes, they're considering whether or not it's fair to charge one parcel the same if it has one house versus maybe a multifamily unit that has 5 or 6 houses. And so a lot of times we look at the breakup of residential parcels when we're looking at parcel taxes. When we look at non-residential parcels, you can see 71% is agricultural land, and we have a small portion, roughly 14%, that's commercial and/or office space. And one thing that's interesting when we look at parcel taxes, so the graph to the right is a distribution of school districts from 1983 to 2012 and parcel tax that were passed. And so what you'll see is that the darkest blue is what is called San Francisco Bay Area region. So not just Santa Clara County, but it also would include Contra Costa, San Francisco. You'll see the total population of districts is roughly 17% of the districts in California. And yet we passed 53% of the parcel taxes in California. It's just interesting information about what is kind of a localized phenomenon that's happening is that more and more school districts, and especially in our region, are using parcel taxes in order to generate additional revenues. So statewide, only 12% of school districts have passed parcel taxes. As I already mentioned, currently San Francisco continues to be one of the bigger areas for parcel taxes, and we believe that's partly because of household income. You'll see the graph to the left kind of demonstrates those where districts have, within the county, have 25% or more of districts receiving a parcel So in Santa Clara County, 22 districts in our county have a parcel tax. And just to give you kind of some context, we have roughly 274,000 students enrolled, and we have 22 districts receiving a parcel tax. Los Angeles County, which has 1.6 million students, has only 14 districts receiving parcel taxes. So just more kind of background information about what is happening in this area. In fact, coming up on the ballot, you'll see several of the ballot measures that we pulled coming up on November in Santa Clara County, where districts are either extending or adding parcel taxes. So for example, Measure EE in Oak Grove levy a parcel tax of $132 per parcel for 9 years for $3.1 million. And in San Jose Unified, Measure Y, annually $72 school district parcel tax for 8 years, raising $5 million annually. So here are just some examples of upcoming measures that we'll be voting on in. So with that in mind, what are some of the options for revenue enhancement? As I mentioned, there isn't a lot that we can do, but there is something that we can do. And so tonight we have several different options. So really we've defined these as voter requirement, voter approval required, and kind of no voter action. So those are the two segments. Within voter approved, we will talk about a flat rate parcel tax, a variable rate parcel tax, and then a joint city schools sales tax. And then no voter action required would be to look to establish an education foundation. We know that we have schools that are doing lots of fundraising to support their individual schools, but this would be the broader context of supporting all Morgan Hill schools. So option one, which is a flat rate parcel tax, this is really the simplest kind of parcel tax that we see, the most commonly used. One of the biggest challenges that we see with parcel taxes is the requirement to receive 2/3% of the vote. And so that's a really hard threshold for a lot of districts to receive, but it's required. About 60% of parcel taxes throughout the state are passed. There's been different movements over the last several years to look at lowering the threshold. It used to be that facilities bonds also required a 2/3 vote. And that was moved to 55% through legislative action. And there's been several proposals in the last couple of years to look at that, although none have been successful. So the threshold still remains at 2/3 for approval. Roughly 86% of parcel taxes that were approved were a flat rate parcel tax. The average rate was $134. And generally, we see parcel taxes between 3 to 10 years. But really the term is up to the ballot language itself, and so some districts have a permanent parcel tax in effect that doesn't have an ending date to it. One variation of a parcel tax is a variable rate parcel tax. It's not something that I would recommend, but I do want to explain it because you may have heard of other districts that have done this. And this type of parcel tax assesses a differential rate per parcel. Typically, it's either done by square footage of the unit or the house that's on the parcel, or it's done by the type of parcel. So for example, there'd be a residential versus a commercial rate. And so basically it allows the district to capitalize on non-residential tax base, really by charging more to some of those other uses, and thereby charging residential less is typically the way that it's done. That can be hard when you try to go out and sell it because you don't know the person that you're speaking to, what rate you're going to charge them. Whereas a flat parcel tax, you can tell them it's going to be $100 every single year. When you go out and you try to inform the community about a parcel tax and it's a variable rate, it's pretty hard because you have to explain to your different audiences what that rate is. And the reaction could be very different between those audiences. So you really have to kind of focus your audiences when you do your voter outreach. There have been recent legal challenges, and this is why I don't recommend that this is an option that we would use. Most notably, I think it was Alameda had a challenge. And so the tax code, and it went all the way up to the California Supreme Court, that school districts cannot charge a differential tax if that exceeds our taxing authority. So based on that, this is not something I would recommend. We saw it kind of in the late 2000s to kind of early 2011, 2012. We haven't seen it after that though. The next option, which is interesting to kind of pursue, and we talked a little bit in our city school liaisons meeting about it, is a joint city schools sales tax. Now, the school district itself can levy a parcel tax, we can levy a bond tax, but we can't issue a sales tax. But the city has the ability to issue a sales tax increase and could allocate or carve out a portion of that that could be shared with the school district. And actually, in talking with the city, they had actually looked at this option last summer, just a few months ago. They were looking at this option to deal with some of their infrastructure and other needs within the city. And so they've been looking at this as an option. So some ways that this is sometimes on a voter initiative is that will the city levy a 1 cent sales tax or 1% increase to sales tax would be the first measure. And then there's a companion measure that would say something like, will 50% of the funds levied go to help support schools? And so that's the way that sometimes these sales tax measures work. Although if you have it for a dedicated source, it then increases the threshold to be 2/3 and not 50% plus 1. So you kind of, the kind of advantage of looking at the sales tax measure is that it has a lower threshold because it's really a simple majority. But if you really want to say it's dedicated to schools, it pushes it into that 2/3 requirement. Also, people sometimes like sales tax because it's kind of across the board, it's levied. But versus parcel taxes, which are only for homeowners and not necessarily everyone is a homeowner. One of the challenges is because of our own geographic region, though. We cover San Martin, city of Morgan Hill, the unincorporated area, and San Jose. So really, although the majority of our population does come from the city of Morgan Hill, not all of our students are from the city. So it's a little bit of a unique challenge, not something that can be overcome, but a little bit unique. The process to get a joint city schools tax on the ballot is pretty complicated. A lot of coordination with the city council and the city manager. It's actually the city council who will call for the election, not the school district. The city attorney writes the measure and administers the tax, and then we really work out a mechanism to transfer the resources between the two agencies. And because of where we are, the next opportunity would be fall of 2018. Although because we have so many steps involved, we want to look sooner than that. Option 4 is our non-voter approved initiative, and this is really to look at establishing an education foundation, which allows the district to generate funds for district-wide initiatives without any voter approval. Currently, you'll see that we're generating, the last couple of years, almost $100,000 in cash donations. Lots of other donations that have come to the district, but an actual cash donation is about $100,000 over all of our school sites. So this would be an option, but just as home and school clubs, and I know many of you have served on home and school clubs before, it's highly dependent on the volunteers' ability to fundraise, to recruit members, and so the revenue is somewhat volatile in that standpoint, that you're asking for donations, it's not guaranteed. So when people can, they will give. But if we fall into a recession again, it's likely that you would see that diminish. And so it's because it's volatile revenues, it makes it hard to pay for people out of that kind of money. So typically, education foundations tend to be for specific items, not necessarily to fund salaries or to fund people necessarily.
And there is a current foundation, Live Oak Foundation, in this community, but it's not used to generate large funds for particular issues.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. They do a lot in the community, but not as district-wide as far as fundraising. So we've kind of tried to summarize for you the different options, and the numbers we came up with for option 1, we tried to use the average parcel tax. Option 1 would be the flat parcel tax and would generate roughly $2.7 million. The variable parcel tax, which is where we charge residential a little bit less per unit, but we would charge all other parcels a lot more per unit, would generate $3.8 million. A joint city school sales tax, and we would have to figure out how that's split up. Does 100% of the proceeds come to the district? Is it a 50-50 split? What does that look like? The total amount, for example, for a half-cent sales tax would be $3.6 million. And then again, how is that divvied up between the city and the school would have to be worked out. So you can kind of see the scale for the sales tax. And with the Education Foundation, it's limitless. We just have to find some volunteers to help go out and fundraise and reach out to corporations. And some of you are laughing because you probably have been in that position. And it can be difficult because it becomes your second job to do that. So some potential next steps, we can continue exploration. I included information from prior boards that have considered this as an option for your reference because we weren't using Agenda Online, so it wasn't as easy for you guys to find that information. Part of what we had done when we were considering this was to do a voter survey. And during that voter survey process was really to look at what were high leverage items for the community that we could get the majority of voters, or 2/3 of the voters, to say, I would fund this. This is something that I would want to fund. Of course, a voter survey costs money, so we'd have to look at, do we want to invest money in a voter survey? But that would give us better information around the support of the community to fund a parcel tax. And it would also tell us the sensitivity of the community. So would $50 be supported by 90%, but $100 would only be supported by 70%, for example. So we would get some information related to tax sensitivity in our community, and then we could find out, really refine those numbers to say how much money could we potentially generate. These are assumptions now. What we don't know is what our community support these kind of levels. So the voter survey really helps to identify what are the high priority items for the community, and then what are they willing to pay for those high priority items. So that really helps us to target our ballot language and then come back and have a discussion around moving forward or not. And that's some of the political and community outreach. The outreach, depending on who does the outreach, you can have somebody who kind of runs your election committee for you. You can have volunteers that do a lot of that work. And so that is another potential cost item as we think of moving forward.
Okay, trustees, any questions?
Kristen, thank you so much for very clear, clear options and what they might generate, what it might take to get it. I want to go back to the question about if we did a sales tax or a joint, venture with the city, how, because you can't put it in the language of the ballot from what you said, otherwise we're at the 2/3 threshold. How do you work out, is it a side letter, is it some gentleman's agreement?
It's structured in an MOU type of form.
Oh, okay.
And then it's built into the measure.
Oh, it is built in.
So if it's a designated use, then it's a 2/3 requirement. If you're looking for a simple majority, I've seen it written generally as an MOU between the two agencies, acknowledging
Away from
away from the ballot language itself.
So designated use means just for the district, or it means specified what the district is?
It could be specified to anything. So for example, they could say police, or emergency services, so not just the district itself, but it's really any designated use.
Or class size reduction.
Yeah, or class size
Yep.
reduction, or after school programs, or the arts. The arts and music and so those are some of the ones I've seen. As far as the cities go, street infrastructures, sidewalks and trees and things like that.
Could it be used for salaries?
It can be used for salaries, for salary straight up salary enhancements. Yes, it could be. It would have to be, part of that. To do that though, we would definitely recommend that you don't have an expiration date.
Well, and you want to assess the volatility. So for example, sales tax can be somewhat volatile. I think maybe we have less volatility here than maybe neighbors just because of the businesses that we have here. But you'd want to look at how much of your sales tax over historical time has been collectible and kind of average that. Because when you're talking about salaries, you don't want to say, oh, I think we're going to get $4 million in sales tax and it comes in at 3 because you've already obligated those funds.
And programs actually pull better than pay.
Because then if you establish, if it's for class size reduction, then if the bond, partial tax or whatever pays for that, then that frees up money to move to
Exactly,
salary.
exactly, and people like to know that it's going to be something, a program or a, entity of some sort rather than the pay, because the pay can always be offset somewhere, And I think there's probably a little less trust in getting voters for that type of event.
What was the rate of voters you have to vote positively in the option one?
2/3.
So I thought,
Three
because that would be
attempts,
true for renewal too.
3 attempts to pass Measure G or
Measure G.
It
no,
went one?
we-
It went once.
We did it one time and we had like 2% over or something.
I think before Measure B, the one that the Sobrato and Barrett, that one took 3 times to pass.
That's what I'm.
And that was the 2/3 threshold.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
So that's the, kind of the price point issue when it comes to polling, is you want to make sure that you're not outright at the cusp, and then it's up to the committee to go out and let the public know the benefits of such a measure, whatever it is, tax measure.
Kristen, on the sales tax option, is there not a cap in terms of the total sales tax that a city in Santa Clara County can charge?
You're correct, there is a sales tax cap, and that's one thing we'd have to investigate, is how close we are to the tax. I think the city thought that the most we could do was 0.75%, but they were looking into whether or not you could seek an exemption, or how that could be raised. But you're right, there is a cap.
And then the second question is, we have a different boundary, and this was brought up in the city school meeting last week. And so, are there any cases where a school district and the city, which don't have the same boundaries, have worked together in this kind of situation?
Yes, yeah. I've seen districts where they don't share a unified boundary. There's still one of the cities or multiple cities that will pass it, but not others.
And it can apply to all the schools in the boundaries, even though those schools aren't in the city. That generates the tax.
How would you go about identifying what your priorities might be and how to set a dollar rate on that parcel tax?
Usually a lot of it comes out of the polling survey that is done, so we would have some what we thought would be high leverage items, and you can probably tell from the survey that was done before about whether or not we would do the parcel tax or Measure G, about what those items were. Historically, it's been things like class size reduction, arts, music, after-school programs, things like that. That survey high access to technology. And so whoever does the voter survey will draft questions to gauge the voters' interest in each of those items. And then as far as tax sensitivity, we could really do it with 2 things in mind: is how much do we want to generate for those activities? And then we have to compare that to what do voters say that they will actually pay. And so it's kind of balancing your needs versus what voters are willing to pay. And you kind of have to find a happy medium. And again, the voter survey will answer some of those questions and help you to kind of say, what is the tolerance, or what is the level of tolerance for voters as far as the increase? And then you have to look at what are your needs. It doesn't always align, unfortunately.
I really, really want it.
I wish. I've heard of some districts where you just hold an annual meeting, you say, this is our budget, and now we're going to charge every parcel this amount. And it was very exciting for me. I was like, oh, that would be great, because it's need-based.
Okay, trustees, because of the late hour, I'd just like to move this along. Are there any other questions for Kirsten? No? Okay.
So what I would say is, depending on which option you'd want to pursue, this is information only, but as you think about which option to pursue, if the sales tax option was something that you'd want to pursue, it's probably something that would need to be agendized for future city schools meetings and or the joint city council school district meeting next in early 2017. And then if you'd like to pursue the option related to parcel tax, we can gather proposals and try to get some preliminary costs on what like a voter survey would run. My guess is somewhere between 15 to 25,000, but we'd have to get proposals.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. The next item on the agenda is G3, which is now G4. Adopt a resolution to approve the 2016-17 Child Development Services Agreement Amendment with the California Department of Education for California State Preschool Program. This is approved as submitted. It looks like there's an increase of $13,287 to the previous amount. So are there any questions that you'd like to ask of this from Dr. Zavala? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve this. Trustee Wolf, I'd like a second. Trustee Gerard, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 7-0, JD. I'm on to G4, adopt resolution to approve revised board bylaw 9270, conflict of interest code, including appendix of designated employees and disclosure categories.
Yeah, this is just to correct or align our categories of employees to the conflict of interest code in policy, lining out a position that we no longer have, adding in a position we do have, and then corrections or updates, basically.
So that is the rationale in there and from the superintendent. So I need a motion to approve this resolution. May I have a motion to approve? Badillo is making a motion to approve. I need a second. Trustee Arnett, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0, Jamie. I'm moving on to G5. Hold on, my computer's just a little bit slow. I guess it's catching on to me here. So this is the proposed revisions to board policies based on updates from the California School Boards Association. So trustees, I'm not sure if this is what they call first read. Are there any questions relative to this?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So, I mean, there are a lot of bylaws here. I forgot how many it was. And I think this is the second to last board meeting of this board. And these are our bylaws. These are the bylaws for this board. And I would like to really move this over to the next board to handle. In fact, I have a lot of ideas on how we could do this. I actually looked at a couple other school districts, notably Berkeley, for instance, has a subcommittee that is a standing subcommittee. They meet twice a month for an hour and a half, and they have 2 board members. I think they're a 5-member board, and they go one bylaw at a time. Sometimes a group if they're related to each other. They actually have pretty good discussions. I've looked at some of their minutes, and one of the nice things is that they not only deal with updates, but they've done this for 5 or 6 years. And what they do is they've used this to really shape the way their board runs and the way the board relates to the community. It's almost, I think it's probably best practice actually from what I can see. I was pretty impressed with how they did it. So I would really like us as a new board going forward to take this up and really maybe in our retreat actually take a look at this and see how we want to handle this, because I think some of these are simply updates from old language, and others are substantive changes in terms of how we would actually do our work as a board. And I think I'd like to, as an ongoing board member, I'd certainly like to give our new board member or members the opportunity to help shape the way the new board runs. So my preference, frankly, would be to table this item to a later point, preferably to our starting to our retreat, hopefully in January, and take it up at that point. There's nothing here that I've seen is of any great urgency that would cause a disaster for the board over the next board meeting or two. So that's my preference to move to table this to a later point.
So are you making a motion?
I am.
There's no action, it's just a read.
Just to read? Well,
But
there was some language there.
I think what, if I hear
It says-
correctly, there's some language in there that you would like the new board to buy in rather than the current board, because we're only 2 weeks away from the new board.
Well, specifically, I want to refer to what it says here. It says, the superintendent or designee shall develop and present a draft policy for a first reading of a public board meeting. At its second reading, the board may take action on proposed policy. The board may waive the second reading or may require an additional reading if necessary. And so I'm saying, because the language is there, I simply want to table it for, as I mentioned, to a later meeting.
So a policy can be approved on one read, and sometimes when a policy has to be changed, put in place immediately, we go through one read. In the past, just for those trustees that weren't here, when we went through the entire policy, and we had a 3-day lockdown in that room with policy all over the place, yes. And there was a board representative going through all the policy together. It is basically a week we put everything aside. We went through all policy to get them in line with CSBA and GAMA. And we enhanced our contract with them so that we have the regular updates coming through rather than depending on whatever law comes through and then changing it ourselves. As it is now, we've probably got north of 30 different policies that we're going to bring to you in piecemeal. So the special ed policy goes to special ed department. They review it for the practices of what we have now, changes, suggestions to align with what we're doing that might work with us. I think staff would be thrilled to know that the board is going to take this on as a subcommittee and willing to turn it over at the moment's notice. We are responsible for compliance with a lot of these things, but
I didn't quite get that.
You didn't quite get that.
Did you ask for extension?
You didn't quite get that.
Is that a yes? I might,
Sorry.
being older than Dirk and having so much more experiences with this, we did have such a committee, and we met on a regular basis, and it was a teacher and a parent and a board member and administration. And one of the benefits to contracting with, what we found was we were not able to move at a pace that was effective, that you get into a huge backlog, which could put you out of compliance or miss the ability to stay in tune with what you're supposed to be doing legally. And so by contracting with CSBA, it really did begin to expedite the information that came to us. We got the most thorough and the most accurate updates. And if you look at these are all linked to different education code, penal code, other laws that govern boards, but also govern the subjects of these. I don't see there's anything wrong with just moving forward after our first read, but certainly we can bring any board policy forward to discuss at any time if we feel the need. So I'm not trying to say it's not a good idea. I'm trying to say there's been some experience, and that's how we've ended up in this place.
Trustee Badil?
So, this has been on our agenda for about, a few weeks now. And I've tried to take the time to review every policy and look at what the proposed changes are versus what the existing items are. And it's time consuming to see, but to compare them, but it would make more sense that if you're proposing a change to include the existing wording so that you can see or redact or highlight saying these are the proposed changes, so you can see specifically what's being changed versus, you know, trying to deduce from the existing to the proposed and trying to work it that way. It's just a suggestion that if the future board has policy changes to make, maybe include that so that it makes it a little less time consuming to try to see what the changes are so that we can move forward faster. That's all.
So that is an excellent point. That was the problem I had, is to go and look at the old and compare it with the new, and try and figure out, you know, what was changed. So it would have helped to have the change highlighted for us so we can figure out precisely the areas that have been changed. For example, there was one that changed the submission of an agenda item from an old, and when I say old, I mean current, 7 days to 12 days. Well, what was the rationale for doing that? I don't know. So I called around a couple of other districts and friends, and they still have the 7 days. So I started to investigate a couple more, and I came up with the same conclusion. I do like the committee though. I really like the sound of that, and have you know, two board members and possibly a staff member help out in that particular area. These are board bylaws, and we really need to look at how the board is going to look at these board policies and bylaws going forward. So if I were to recommend something, I would like to table this to a future meeting where we can assign a committee. I'd really rather not wait until the retreat, because I don't know the date of the retreat right now. But for example, at least give the new board a chance to get assigned on that committee, maybe with an existing board member, and move forward that way. So if I were to propose something, that's the way I would like to go forward. Yes, Trustee Padillo.
I don't know, David, you made a motion.
I did.
Is there still a motion on the floor? Do we need to do anything with it? Because I want to make a motion to extend the meeting for 15 minutes, because we're past our 9:30. So we got to do your motion first.
We have to do the motion. I'm sorry? No, it wasn't second.
So I'll second it.
So Trustee Padillo seconds it.
Do we need? Okay, if there's a motion, there's a second, it's got to be voted on.
Yeah, it's got to be voted on. So
What's the motion?
To table it to, let's set a date. We're
Well,
going to do it.
may I speak?
Of course.
So let me suggest this then. I would suggest that since December is going to be your organizational meeting, that you make, plan to have this bylaw committee identified at that December meeting, and then perhaps have this delayed discussion in the January 1st or 2nd meeting. But that you establish the committee, because you're doing an organizational meeting in December.
Yeah.
So what's your motion, David?
My motion again is to table this issue, as Trustee Benedetto just mentioned, to our organizational meeting, at which time, first of all, we'll appoint a committee that will undertake study of bylaws on a regular basis. And that one of the first tasks of this committee would be to look at these, and at some meeting in January or February that we take recommendations or take some action.
Could I suggest that you don't make it just bylaws? That's a small portion of board policy. Make it board policy if you're going to have a subcommittee on board policy rather than bylaws.
Sure. Okay.
I agree with that amendment.
So we have the wording, Jamie, more specific now. And
Let's read it back.
sure. Let's just. Well, let's just read it back for clarification, so it may answer your question. Okay.
I don't think it's been discussed.
It was to table this to our organization meeting, and then you said devise a committee.
And assign board members.
And assign board
Right,
members, of course.
okay, so trustee Rubish?
I'm just curious, what the scope of the committee is gonna be. Are we gonna discuss that later, the committee, what they're,
But by that time, we're going to know the new board members, and
what's that got to do with?
well, because we're going to have
I see what
a
we
new
have.
board member and hopefully a seasoned board member on the committee.
So you read, I'm just point of
Assign the committee to.
on the committee, and then we're going to change them, or
Maybe.
or just bring back the difference between what was and what is, because these are based, in legal standing and examples. I'm just asking what the committee is going to be charged to do, or are we going to decide that later?
We can decide that later, but I think it's not as difficult as what you're indicating. I think the committee will be assigned to look at these updates, compare them to the existing ones, and bring forth any questions by way of the committee to the board on these updates, or make recommendations to approve as submitted.
Can I just ask one clarifying question?
Sure.
Isn't that primarily what Gamut and CSBA is doing? Are we paying them to do that?
Gamut has policy reviewers on that. And then what it sounds like you want the committee to do is exactly what staff does, and look at the policy compared to what our current practices are. Some of the policies come to us as recommended by Gamut. They say, okay, you could do option 1 or option 2. They'll give you 2 options, and you align it with, like for a unified district, you have option 1. If you're an elementary district, you have option 2. Or if you have a merit system, then you do, option 2. You don't have a merit system. So some of it is just tailored. We need to tailor it to what we're doing. But what Gamut does is they take all the laws that come into play. They look at the impacts on the policy. They write the policy. They vet it with their reviewers, and then they send it out for suggested changes. We then screen it through, align it, which is what it sounds like you want to do as a committee, and then you bring.
Has there ever been a recommendation that's not been submitted to the board? Any of these policy changes?
Recommendation.
You said Gamut recommends to the districts to submit changes.
Yes, because sometimes they'll give, if you want to be more detailed, well, we don't necessarily want to be more detailed because we have some flexibility between sites, so they might say, this is an option for you if you want to be restrictive in this procedure.
So to that end,
so possibly.
we sometimes, or not always, do we go with the suggested recommendations.
Probably 98% of the time.
Yeah, they also put in new policies that, for whatever reason, dealing with technology or whatever it may be, that the districts have not had before.
Sure.
So now, because of whatever has occurred, they'll put a new policy in there. We used to approve a lot of those.
And it may be that a district has found a policy effective. When I was in Fremont Unified, we created a policy and sent it to Gamut, and they sent it to everybody else.
Exactly. Yeah, I did want to point out that I looked at about 5 different boards, big ones, small ones, Bay Area, LA, so on. And I did find, for example, taking one of our policies, I saw slightly different verbiage, or sometimes dramatically different verbiage for the same policy, and they all are using Gamut. But Berkeley, I saw really as almost a best practice, because I could look back in their minutes. They had all the committee minutes, and I read them. I spent a couple hours actually doing this, reading the minutes and seeing the dialogue and seeing the reasons why different boards would make various changes in these board policies. And it was pretty impressive. And I have the sense of, by looking at the videos of the Berkeley board meeting also, you could see the impact of that on the board, which was a surprise because I lived in Berkeley for 20 years or something. did expect it to be as civil and as smooth functioning. I think the fact that they have a board committee that deals with board policies may have some impact on that. It's a self-governing board.
And I totally agree, and I agree with the superintendent. You know, these updates, I know, come with certain verbiage and options. These types of things were discussed in Masters in Governance, and the CSBA has a whole department just on, you know, board policy. So this committee could reach out to CSBA on any questions and get some more, you know, expert advice. I know I reached out to the board policy division at CSBA, you know, many times, and they're just great people to work with. So again, we're running up against the clock, and we're out of compliance right now, and so I'd like to have this tabled as suggested.
So we have a motion and a second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? One nay and 6 yeas. And so Rick Badillo made a motion to extend the meeting. We have a couple of items. The next one is discussion on videotaping and a new business and board reports. So here's the question: do we want to table any of these items? No. No? Okay, so could you make a motion to extend it, how about to
15 minutes.
To 10 p.m.? Does that sound good?
So moved.
Okay, I need a second to extend the meeting. Trustee Arnett is second. All in favor? Any opposed? Over G5.
So that's actually a policy discussion for videotaping meetings?
Yeah.
Which, I don't know if you want to have a committee that you name, players to be named later to discuss that, or?
Which policy is this regarding?
Videos.
Yeah,
What policy?
there is a specific policy.
It's 9324, it's attached to your agenda item.
And there's plenty of information already in the rationale. And so the question is, do we want to run through this right now? Or do we want to table this? Because this is not an extremely important item before the board that we cannot table for the next meeting. Maybe we can even put it as a G1 instead of leaving it to the end as the next meeting. I'm just making a suggestion.
Good idea.
It's a discussion item. So.
Pardon me?
It's a discussion item.
Yes.
So
Good idea.
I move to table, given the time, the fact that we have other business to do.
So, are you making a motion to table it to the next meeting?
Trustee Rivers or I do.
Which one of you made the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, trustee Rubus made the motion, trustee Gerard seconds it, all in favor?
I have a question, just to what date? Able to what date?
The next board meeting.
The next board meeting, so you're gonna do it before you have your new policy committee in place? I mean, that was the whole purpose of the previous discussion.
So your recommendation is to wait until the December meeting?
I agree.
Okay.
So originally, this was on the board deferred it to the board retreat, which would happen later for more in-depth discussion, and then it was brought forward.
I think,
Trustee.
I think the discussion is really good, but I agree with trustee Benevento. You know, we have some new board members coming on board, and, you know, we're so close, and to make decisions and to formulate discussions, you know, without them, I think the better suggestion is to do it in December.
Well, it's my motion, I'll amend my motion to discuss it at our retreat and bring it back for a board discussion. Good too.
I agree. I
Okay.
agree with you on that.
Okay,
There we go.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey,
Okay, we have a 6-0 going forward?
Okay.
Sure.
we're tabling it to discuss
To the
it
board
at board
retreat.
retreat, and then we're going to bring it back to the board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it, thank you.
Hey, the good old days.
Sorry, trustee Patel. So I'm on to G7, new business. Whoops. There's no internet connection.
And there's nothing supporting it, it's just,
Okay,
just open it up to them.
that's okay. I have this, a hard copy.
And board member reports after that.
Yes, I got it. I'm on it. So the new business, future agenda items, recognition, G7. Anybody? Okay. H, board member reports. Trustee Rubish.
I'm gonna just pass my written report, Jane, because the hour is late. But I did bring some trifolds from a conference I attended where the speaker talked about a Read to Me project, which I think could be adapted, or we perhaps, joining with this, we're siblings read to siblings. And it was building in the Central Valley and in Salinas literacy, and it was, addressing some equity issues. It was had many positive secondary effects within families and within the community, and building vocabulary in the very youngest persons in the school district. So I brought those for people to look at. And I just wanted to brag a little bit. A former RLP fashion design student who's been working diligently, Michael Kors, and different haute couture bridal shows, has been selected to show her work at the 2018 New York Fashion Week, and that's Luz Ariaga. And so I'll just pass this along. I would urge you to all go see the San Jose Museum of Art's exhibit called Beauty. It's a blending of engineering, textile design, and art and science of textiles. And then there's a whole component that's ethnic beading techniques that have been interpreting children's drawing. And the beading is coming out of Africa. It's really interesting. Screenagers, thank you, district, for the support. It was wonderful. We had over 250 people sign up, and I think we had about 200 people in attendance on a rainy, cold Thursday night. And the discussion was very positive. And the kids' feedback was really interesting. So thank you. It was I thought enlightening. Right, I'll just pass that around.
Thank you, trustee. Board reports. Okay, I need a motion for an adjournment back to closed session.
Mr. President, I'm going to ask to be excused because I'm not feeling well. And
Okay.
So I'm going to
Okay. Thank you, trustee Benedetto. So I see a motion to adjourn from trustee Gerard.
Yes.
I need a second.
Second.
Trustee Arnett, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned at 9:51 p.m. Thank you, committee members, staff, trustees. Back to closed session. Jamie, do I need you to sign it?
Yes, you want to go?
Gerard?
Right.